Hello and welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to look at fitting DCC to this Hornby J52 loco that I picked up from the local model shop, Trains For You. And I bought it because I do like the livery on it, and I did have one of these to do for Trash to Track, but it was the older Triang X04 base thing. And this has got a newer motor in it, so I thought I'd do a quick video showing how I'll convert this to DCC. First off, you've got to test to make sure it's a good runner on DC, which this is, although it is a little bit dusty. So I'm just going to dust the body shell down with a paintbrush. Now this model was in too good a condition really to feature on a Trash to Track, so I thought I'd just do a small video on its own and show how I improve the looks and the running of this slightly older Hornby tooling of a lovely little shunting loco. So to remove the body from the chassis, you have to disengage this clip in the back coal bunker here, and once I just try and gently push that clip in, the chassis falls out. And it is the generic 060 type chassis that's found in Ginty tanks, Thomas, that sort of thing. And it's a very simple affair. The pickup's straight to that suppressor, straight to the motor. So I'm just removing this clip in here because this tank top is removed, so that I can remove the separately fitted inner cab piece, because I'm going to paint this up to just detail it a little bit. Although it proved to be a very, very tight fit, it is supposed to come out. It is a separate fitting. It wasn't glued in place. This was purely friction fitting, but it did take some force. But there we go. That's the cab and bunker separate piece. Now I'm going to paint this up, like I said, just to give it a bit more detail. As it stands, it is in this GNR green livery, which obviously is not prototypical at all. So I'm going to detail paint it up. I'll paint the cab, bulkhead and the bunker black, just making sure that I'm not getting any on the glazing there, using this Rail Match satin black paint. And then that was set aside to dry, and it was given a second coat. And then I've jumped forward a bit here. Look, I've painted the floor a nice wood colour, picked all the gauges out, picked the pipes out with brass, regulator in red, the handbrake wheel, I think it is on the back there, in silver. And it just adds that little bit extra to the model. Now, I didn't obviously film painting all of that because that would have been a 2 or 3 hour video on its own. But you can pretty much see what I did there, detail painting and picking out the details in the cab. And then once it was thoroughly dry, it was a case of just trying to squeeze this bit back into the body shell until it clips in place. And then the cab step there, which I'd left green, was also touched in with brown paint. Now, to remove the motor from the model, all you do is remove this retaining screw at the front here and that small spacer washer, and everything lifts out as one unit: pickups, motor, the lot. And the chassis is very free running. There's very little in the way of dirt on this model, just some old grease that needs to be removed with a cotton bud and meths, and that old orangey grease in there. Now, I always like to get rid of this. I don't know how long this model's been sat for, so it's always worth putting fresh lubrication on. The pickups were then given a clean. There is a little bit of dirt on the cotton bud. And then the wheels were given a clean over. If you've seen my Trash to Track videos, you'll know the methods I use for this. Cotton bud and meths, and if they're really dirty, then polish up with a fiberglass pencil. Luckily, the traction tyres on this model were in good order, so they didn't need to be changed. But I do remove the chassis keeper plate because this model sits surprisingly in proper turned metal bearings, and there is a bit of old congealed oil under here, as you can see. So with a cotton bud and meths again, I'm going to clean up the chassis, clean up all the axles and apply some fresh lubrication to give this model the best chance of running perfectly when I fit a decoder to it. So all the axles were given a clean. As I said, all that old congealed oil and grease was removed. And then we can start the reassembly process and fit in a DCC decoder. Once the actual metal chassis had been cleaned, the chassis keeper plate was also given a clean over to remove any oil. And now that everything is thoroughly cleaned, or at least it will be very shortly when I've cleaned all this crud and that off here, we can look at reassembling the model, as I said. Now, putting the wheel sets back in, you have to line the bearings up. The rear axle is sprung, as is normal on these chassis. And there's a small amount of oil is put on the axles and bearings to make sure that it is all correctly lubricated using this pin dropper, which is a good tool, but it can be frustrating, this pin dropper. Sometimes it picks up oil, sometimes it doesn't. It's a bit of a lottery whether you get any lubrication on it at all. And then the keeper plate goes in one way, it goes on this way, look, and then just clips in place and is re-secured with those 4 small black screws we took out earlier on. Well, I will do when I can line them up. There we go, just to screw them back in. And now I'm going to look at taking the motor out of this housing just to give it a clean up. And I desolder the suppressor arms and the one on this side. I leave the solder on that brass pickup there. I can use that when I fit a decoder to it. So that's the suppressor unit that's gone in the bin because the DCC decoders have suppressors built into them. And I'm going to fit this model with this Bachmann decoder that I had in my spares box. Now, to fit a decoder, it is simple if there's no lights or sound involved. There are colour-coded wires on the decoder, and what you want for this is red and black for the track. So the rhyme is red and black to track, orange and grey the other way. So I solder the red and black wires to the track pickup. There we go, that's the black wire attached. And then the orange and grey wires go to the motor terminal. Now, you can make a note of the positive and negative terminals on the motor, which probably preferable to do so. I tend not to do it because on DCC, if you've wired the motor up backwards, it's a simple case of changing a CV, and I can't remember off the top of my head what CV it is, but you can. It's easy to Google. You can change a CV to alter the direction on the decoder so it will run in the correct way. But now it's been wired up, I'm just giving it a battery test, and you can see the motor's spinning away there. The decoder isn't hot, there's no short circuit, so we've successfully fitted a chip to this model. Replacing the motor into the chassis, you have to engage the 2 clips on the rear, ensuring that the pickups are behind the wheels, and then gently dropping it down and putting the front 2 pickups in place. And once that's insecure, you replace that spacer washer and then screw the motor back down onto the chassis. And when the screws tightened up, that is the rebuild virtually done. So we'll get this now, just checking to make sure the pickups and the motor seated correctly. So we'll put it on the track, give it a battery test, and away she goes. So that's good news. That means that it's all working correctly, no short circuits, and everything is wired as it should. Now, one good thing with these older J52s is that the tank comes off, so you can thread the decoder up through the loco and then put the chassis on and seat the decoder inside the loco with the body and chassis connected. I'm just shoehorning that wire in there, trying not to break it, because it should go to the side and I've put it over the top. And also the heat shrink I use is a bit thicker than that Hornby used, so it will go on. It's just a case of jiggling it a little bit to get it to sit correctly. And then once it's in, clip that rear clip back into the coal bunker. And then the decoder is sticking up in the air, but now with a little bit of black tack, I can put it on the tank top, put the decoder into the top of the tank, and then seat the saddle tank back in place. And then there's 2 lugs that go in the front of the cab there, and a clip behind the smoke box chimney. Make sure no wires are trapped. I mean, it is easy doing it this way. It's better than trying to put the decoder in and then feed the chassis in. I prefer it this way. If all models were as easy to chip as this, it'd be a doddle. So make sure everything's seated correctly. And then in the top of the screen there, you can just see the handrails. They need replacing onto the front of the smoke box. Once I've put the body shell on a model-eyed chip, I always test it to make sure no wires have been broken or caught in the reassembly process. And then this handrail just pushes back into the front, into the smoke box and into that saddle tank. If you line the handrail wires up correctly, everything should push back into place. I did need to use my tweezer nose pliers. And that's it. We've, in my opinion, improved the cab layout and detail on this model and DCC fit it. You can see in there, hopefully you can see in there that the cab looks so much better now it's painted and not just the generic body colour. And I really do like this little tank engine. I like the livery. I like the fact that these motors that are fitted to this era Hornby model react really well when fitted with a digital decoder. So you'll see here the J52 is now out on the garden layout, and I'm going to demonstrate the slow speed control we have, look. Over this model now it's DCC fitted. Now you'd be hard pressed to say that that's on speed step 3, that's speed step 1. I mean, that is really good slow speed control for a model of this age, and it is all down to the decoder doing that with the motor. Now you struggle to get that on DC, so this is a really good runner when fitted with a digital decoder, and I'm more than happy to have this running around the garden. I'll demonstrate the slow speed here by coming up to these Mark 1s and coupling up. So we've gone down to speed step 1 and clunk, and then away you go. A little bit jolty there. That's because the Gauge Master handheld is a wait for it to react. But I'm really happy with this now. It looks nice model. Yeah, it's not got the finesse or the bells and whistles that the new Rapido one is bound to have when that comes out. But you'd be hard pressed to say that this isn't a good looking model chugging around the garden, especially in this nice GNR green livery. I'm really pleased with this, and it runs an absolute dream. So thanks for watching this short video. Please like, share and subscribe, and I will catch you again in the next video. Bye for now.